Do it again, do it again.
And welcome back to a brand new episode of The Other People, the only show on the YouTube that nobody watches and self-loathing. So, this is officially episode 11? 12, I think? I think
hell, we don't care.
Well,
apparently neither do you guys either, so.
Well, technically I do, because I have to archive all this crap. So.
Oh, no? Okay.
Yeah, so somebody has to take responsibility, and sadly it's me. So for this episode, because during the last podcast we tried to do a brief discussion on comic books, but a bit of the audio kind of got screwed over. So why not just devote an entire episode to said discussion? So I put together a list, and so did Andy, of quite a few comics and particularly a few series that I have read, and some that I've liked and some that I haven't. And we're going to try to talk as briefly as we can on these said comics. I was going to try to do a bit more research on a few of them, but I thought, like, who really cares? And that's just putting a lot more effort into something that just, I'm sure, really in the long run just doesn't matter. So I will go ahead and I'll start first. The first comic series I remember reading that kind of introduced me to the world of comics was X-Men Executioner Song series, and actually a while ago on Amazon they were actually selling the entire book series as like an entire volume, and I managed to get my hands on it, and I've been trying to read through it. There's just so much freaking dialogue on like each and every single page. But what I remember reading, I remember certainly enjoying. I actually told you about this the last time that we recorded. It was this kind of confusing series where the character of Cable is framed for the crime of trying to assassinate Professor Xavier. Turns out it's his twin identical brother, Strife, who uses the minions of Apocalypse to abduct Scott and Jean Grey to emotionally and psychologically torture them, because he's actually their son, and the X-Men think that it was Apocalypse who did it, and then also think it was Sinister who did it, and it's kind of...
Nobody knows who did it!
Well, because also at first, because they think that it's Cable who did it, that they also go after X Factor, or was it X Force? No, it was X Factor. Because both of those other teams are also involved in the book, and so it's a big team crossover event. So and a lot of different characters, and I know a lot of other different comic series were also involved in the telling of this story, namely X Factor and X Force. And I remember it being pretty good from what I remember reading, and then just trying to read again. But it's a pretty damn long book. But I still remember enjoying it. Did you ever read any of the Executioner Song series?
No, I don't believe I did.
All right.
Kind of sounds like I should have, though, but...
Yeah. Well, and that was my first one. What's yours, Andy?
My first one is probably Conan the Barbarian.
Mm. And that's the same one?
It was in a group that I got because we were going on vacation and I needed stuff to read.
Mm-hmm.
and it was probably the first one, along with Cole the Conqueror, and I think an X-Men comic.
Do you remember what the series of the X-Men comic was, or was it?
I know it was in that area where the Goblin Queen, a clone of Jean Grey, was kind of about, or the current Jean Grey's a clone. I can't remember which one it was, but
yeah, I know she was a clone at one point.
Yeah.
As part of my comics history knowledge that I've learned, because from
what I kind of remember, I think the Goblin Queen is the actual Jean Grey who kind of became evil.
Mm-hmm.
And the current one is like a clone or something, but I'm not entirely certain of that.
Well, because as far as from what I understand about a lot of the history of the X-Men, more specifically with a lot of their characters, a lot of it gets really overcomplicated and even hard to know, like, what the fuck is even going on with said character.
And this is like with a different style of Psylocke. This is like the British Psylocke. Before she became Asian. She had like a cloak, but and same psychic powers and everything. Just instead of forming like side blades and whatnot, and she just kind of messed with your head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, was she always British and she just looked Asian,
well, there's like a kind of weird kind of thing with her to where she started off as a British lady.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the Hand got a hold of her and transferred her mind into one of their assassins.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of reprogrammed her into an assassin. And that's how she became Asian. I'm not entirely sure if that's correct, though. I think there's like even another thing to where like Sinkar got involved, or the Centauri Empire got involved in there somewhere and messed with her head too. It gets complicated.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, just from that brief explanation, it just sounds horribly complicated.
Yeah.
Well, you see, she was British, and then she got abducted by this Hand, but then aliens got involved, and they psychologically transferred... Wait, what? Oh, comic books.
Yeah. Well, the Hand's a bunch of ninjas, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know. All right, well, my next book that I'll bring up is X-Force, The Apocalypse Solution. Did you hear about this one?
Yeah, I think from you.
All right, well, this book came out a couple of years ago. It's a new established small group of the X-Force that Wolverine starts up. Because basically he decides, well, this will be a small sort of black ops team that'll do jobs in certain things that the X-Men can't do, and then that way it can relieve Cyclops of a lot of his moral responsibilities, in that they're a team that will hunt down evil people and kill them. And it's led by Wolverine, Archangel, Psylocke, Deadpool, and a brand new character called Phantom X.
Okay.
And it's a really good book. It's basically all about them finding out that Apocalypse is going to be reborn, and then just trying to find the host that he's going to be planted into. And also about them trying to fight off his brand new acolytes and also his new horsemen as well. And it was just very well written. And I mean, I read through the whole book in like an hour, and I just really enjoyed it. It was really good.
Yeah, sounds like it.
It still has a lot of that good character and a lot of the typical humor that you expect from a lot of the characters, namely Deadpool.
Oh, yeah, I can kind of imagine.
Like, there's this scene where after they first fight the Horsemen, and they really get their asses kicked. Like Archangel, he goes up against Famine, and Famine just full on affects him with his ability, where he's basically starving to death. And Deadpool is trying to help him and trying to nurse him back to health. At first, he tries feeding him Pop Rocks and soda, but that really doesn't work. And finally realizes, I'm gonna have to give you some real food. And so he starts hand feeding him what looks like, what was that?
Ice machine.
Oh, okay. He starts hand feeding him what looks like meat, and he's saying to him, "Okay, come on, little bird." And to which Archangel asks, "What exactly are you feeding me, and where did you get this?" And Deadpool says, "Well, if I tell you, do you promise to keep eating?" And the page pulls out, and Deadpool is actually slicing off bits of his own skin to feed it to him.
God.
Well, because that was the only other food that he had available, and
Lord.
Yeah. It's really dark, but it's still pretty goddamn funny. So, it's like,
and very Deadpool, I might add.
Yeah. So, okay, so that was book number 2. What's yours, Andy?
And there was a little mini-series of the X-Men series back in the mid-90s called Rogue, about Rogue.
Oh, okay, cool.
And there was like 5 comics in there. And it was all about her basically coming to terms with her past. It basically kind of ends with, the boy that she kissed when she discovered her powers. Basically her letting him go. Because she actually has a spiritual connection with him due to this voodoo witch doctor lady. It kind of connects his spirit because he got kidnapped from the hospital. Because, one of the assassins from the Gambit little things, the Assassins Guild.
Yeah.
Had basically really wanted to get revenge on Rogue because apparently Rogue stole her memories. So she kidnapped Cody out of this hospital that he was in while he was in a coma.
Yeah.
Well, as a result of that, he slowly started dying because he wasn't getting proper care anymore.
Of course.
So, at the very end, Rogue had to let him go.
Right.
Yeah. And just kind of really emphasized that whole thing. There was actually even a good scene where she actually temporarily lost all her powers and actually had to fight hand-to-hand with a trained assassin and actually held her own.
Cool.
Mostly because of Wolverine's training.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Yeah. What that really reminds me of is the storyline that they did at one point in the animated series where it talks a lot more about Rogue's past, and even the woman that she got her powers from, and then her having to psychically fight her. Because the woman in her head had broken free of Xavier's bounds and was actually trying to fight Rogue for control of her mind.
Yeah. Or her body, rather.
Yeah. And that was really good. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to my next one, I'm going to talk about a book that I really didn't like. And that was Toe Tags, if you remember me talking to you about this one last time.
I don't believe I do, but...
All right, well, this was a pretty short series that was created, and I understand it was written by George Romero.
Oh, okay, yeah, now I kind of remember it.
Yeah.
I don't think you ever mentioned the name of it, though.
Okay, well, it was called Toe Tags, and it was produced by DC Comics. It only lasted about 6 issues, and it ran from 2004 to 2005. That's how much research I bothered to put into this piece of shit. And I remember I bought a couple of books from the series. I know I got book 3 because that was the first and only one that I saw on the shelves. And then I remember I had the last 2 books in the series. Oh, and here's the subtitle of the series.
Mm-hmm.
You ready?
Yeah.
The Death of Death.
Ugh.
Isn't that just so brilliantly deep?
Mm-hmm.
And surprise, surprise, it's all about zombies. It's all about another...
with Jojo Romero on there, of course it's about zombies.
I hate to call the guy a hack, because he did create the zombie genre, and he has done a few other type of films that were not about zombies. But, namely, this is kind of all he does, and even then, a lot of his, okay, so, I really liked the original Night of the Living Dead, and that's pretty much the only one I really liked. I watched Dawn, and I watched Day, and I saw Land, and I didn't like any of them. In fact, I thought Land was terrible.
Now, the ones you watched, are those the ones that were remakes of them, or the originals from the 80s?
Those are the originals.
Okay.
I did watch the remake of Dawn of the Dead, and I really liked that one, as opposed to the original. And anyway, Toe Tags, it's so poorly written. The art in it is fine, but it's just so poorly written and just really weird at times, and it's all meant to be taken seriously. Like the fact that our lead zombie character, who I think, as I understand it, started off human and then became zombie. And what was slightly interesting about the series was that there were some intelligent zombies out there that were able to communicate, especially our lead.
Mm-hmm.
And he has like a little mini chain gun attached to his arm.
Well, of course, they always got to put a chain gun somewhere in those things. I don't know why.
Well, yeah. Well, because, who doesn't want a chain gun for an arm? And he rides a zombie mammoth.
Okay, why is there a zombie mammoth?
I don't know. It must have come on, early in the series, which I didn't read. And I wasn't able to get my hands on. And, and it's kind of things like that make you go, how can you take this series seriously with this shit? And, and it kind of makes you wonder, had this just embraced the utter ridiculousness and just, decided to have some fun with it and just be like, you know what, who the fuck cares? Let's just have some fun. But they're not doing that. They're trying to tell a really dark, deep story, but the writing is just terrible. So that was Toe Tags. That was my first bad one. What's your next one? And it can be anyone that you want, Andy. Be it good, bad, or even.
I'm trying to think of a bad one here.
Okay.
Let's see. Well, this isn't necessarily a comic book, more like a manga.
Okay.
It's called Battle Maidens.
Okay.
Or Fight Maidens, or something like that. Or it basically, the first one was kind of okay, but the second one they
what's the premise of it?
Well, it has to do with the 13 Kingdoms from back in the Romance of the 13 Kingdoms saga in ancient China. Or, no, the 4 Kingdoms, not 13. I don't know why I got 13. And there was 4 kingdoms. There was Wu, Wei, Shu, and... Shit, I can't remember the 4th one. Anyway,
okay.
Anyway, now a bunch of Chinese warlords. Well, there's these, little jewels that supposedly have warrior souls in them. And, there's a school dedicated to these people, teaching them how to use the jewels and tap into the warrior spirit and all that. And it's basically nothing but an excuse for overly inflated girls to get into brawls and to show panty shots.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first one. The second one doesn't even make any sense because they kind of oh yeah, there's supposed to be a plot supposed to be somewhere in there. And so they tried to jam in a plot in the second one, and it just never worked.
You know what that makes me think of? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was pretty much done.
Okay. What that makes me think of was another short-lived series that Linkara reviewed. It was called Marville.
Yeah.
It was produced by Marvel Comics, and it was written and I guess created by the guy who was the head of Marvel at the time. Started off as basically a parody of comic books, where their own hero was a parody of the Superman origin.
Okay.
And then the comic decides to, hey, you know what? Let's start trying to be all deeply philosophical, and let's start talking about God and creationism and evolution and all this. So wait, what?
Well, yeah.
And
you can't start off with something all silly and fun-filled, and then just all of a sudden it's oh yeah, we ought to talk about deep philosophical stuff. Do these people realize how jarring that is to some people?
No, well, and it also doesn't help either when the comic is just not funny, either. And then, and then when it tries to do all of this philosophical stuff, and even try to talk about evolution and dinosaurs and the existence of God and all this, it doesn't even get that right. And then, and here's the best part. For the last issue of the comic, because the creator got so up his ass about it, the last comic is their lead character pitching this comic to an executive who's oh, well, I'm sorry, but I don't think, that people, or fans or whatever, would really be able to understand, this kind of work. I'm sorry, kid, but your book's just not good enough. I mean, he said, and as the character is leaving the building, he says, but we're trying for world peace. Sorry, kid. And it's just go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Are you serious? It's anyway, it was just, oh god, it was dumb. It was, oh god, it was so stupid. Alright, well anyway, for my next book, briefly, I'll talk about Ghost Rider, The Trail of Tears series.
Okay.
I just offhandedly read this, because I am still a Ghost Rider fan. And this was its own story that took place during the Civil War. And it's all about this soldier who was fighting, I believe, for the South, who's mortally wounded and is rescued by a freed slave who takes him in and nurses him back to health and helps him out. And then the guy comes back later to repay him, but finds that him and his family have been brutally murdered. And so he kind of he kind of goes on a quest to find the guys who did this and kill them, but finds that they're being pursued by something else as well, the spirit of vengeance.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it was just really, really good, and I just really enjoyed it. So, and well, since you brought up the manga, let me bring up the Battle Angel manga series, which I read quite a bit of. And well, not just while we were down in Kentucky last time, but But I know quite a few years ago, the twins brought it up to me. And I was reading the first couple of books, and I really enjoyed it, and I just couldn't stop reading it. And it's a series that went on for a long time, and surprisingly, it was a series that was just still able to be really good and just really interesting. And naturally, there's the anime that I know that we talked about during our anime discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That basically took a couple of the books from the series and tried to combine them, and just
didn't do it very well.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, I can still enjoy the anime, but in terms of character and depth, the manga is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
All right, your turn.
Let's see. Oh, there's the Alien versus Predator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got like the entire paperback book.
Yeah.
Combines all the comics in one, and
is that the same one that I have?
Yep, probably.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there was another series, another 4-part series that takes place like after she joins the Predators, and she winds up at the end basically rejoining humanity because, well, she just couldn't get to deal with the Predators.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, and that was also because they were, I believe, because they were going to attack another human settlement. Was what was going on, I think.
Yeah.
I only have like one comic from that series that I think is like part 2 or 3 in that, and I think it was subtitled War.
Yeah, Alien versus Predator War. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm missing part 3.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they have the entire series like all together. I think you can probably, well, I don't know if you could get it from a local book or comic book store. Maybe, but I don't know. But your best bet would be to probably find it online.
Yeah, Mr. Who doesn't have the internet.
Yeah, sorry, buddy.
Yeah, that's all right.
All right, well, next I'll briefly talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book and comic series that they have going on now too. That was the very first graphic novel series that I read as a kid. I don't remember if I read that. I mean, I think I was exposed to the cartoon first, and then the graphic novel.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was too.
Mm-hmm. And the books are still very, very good. I still love the art. I still love a lot of the dialogue. And the new comic series that they started doing, I think about a year or maybe 2 years ago, is basically they took both a lot of the new and a lot of the old and just combined them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, they did a very good job with it. And hell, I mean, the fact that one of the original writers is helping to work on it is a very good sign.
Yeah, that always helps.
Yeah. And then I'll briefly mention one of the Sin City books that I bought after watching the Sin City movie, which was The Hard Goodbye story.
Okay.
You've seen Sin City, right?
Yep, I own Sin City.
All right, well, The Hard Goodbye is Marv's story.
Is Marv kind of the bruiser type guy that ends up fighting Elijah Wood?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there were quite a few people who kept on, saying like, oh, well, when they made this movie, they really took, the exact images from the comic. And you can see, you hear that crap all the time.
Mm-hmm.
For Sin City, they literally did exactly that. Every single image that you see in the book is in the movie.
Yeah.
And which is just, wow, they did a damn good job with that.
Yeah.
So,
of course, and I think that was before Frank Miller went nuts. So.
Well, yeah. Well, well, hell, I mean, because, okay, so, I'm trying to remember the name of the director who helped make Sin City possible. I mean, he did all the Desperado movies and such. What was his name?
I think Tarantino was part of that, but I'm not sure if he was actually the director.
He wasn't the director. He did direct like one scene, but he didn't direct the movie.
Shit.
I
know who you're talking about. I think mostly because he also did like all the Spy Kid. Yeah, thank you. I knew it was Rodriguez something. Yeah, he also did like all the Spy Kid movies.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's just sickening and sad. But yeah, he kind of wrote Frank Miller as like a co-director or a director only because it was his comic. But he didn't actually direct the movie because, well, we've seen what happens when Frank Miller is allowed to direct a movie. Spirit. Oh boy, you want to talk about
yeah.
Man, you want to talk about a piece of shit movie. God damn. Anyway, your turn.
Oh shit. Okay, let me think.
Okay.
Oh, there's another kind of bad one.
Okay.
It was back when they were doing, like, in the comics, the whole Predator versus thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of them happened to be Tarzan.
Somehow I just can't wrap my mind around that.
Yeah, that's kind of how the comic goes, too. It's like barely has the Predators in it, like has this weird thing to where this like snake cult basically somehow hypnotizes Tarzan and his wife into being king and queen of the cult.
Uh-huh.
And it just gets weirder from there.
Well, I mean, it already just sounds weird. And I mean, granted, we've had plenty of other Predator versus storylines, namely a lot of Batman, and then I don't know if they ever did Predator versus Superman. I mean, I know they did Alien versus Superman.
Yeah,
which is
I
just
have that
dumb in itself.
You know, it was kind of interesting at first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mostly because, you know, Superman actually kind of loses his powers.
Yeah.
But, and then at like one point in time, he actually gets an alien queen baby stuck in him.
Mm-hmm.
Gets impregnated with it.
Yeah.
And there at the end, it like tries to burst out of his chest, but by then his powers come back, so it's just basically it ends up breaking its skull on his skin.
Okay.
And then he just regurgitates it up.
Ew. That's gross.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
All right, well, my next one is, I don't know if you ever heard of this. I heard of it, but I never read it. It was a comic series that was created by Mr. Leonard Nimoy himself.
Okay.
It's called Primortals.
Okay.
And it ran for only about a couple of years. It was helped produced by, I think, a somewhat independent comic book company. It's called Techno Comics. And and while I have the first issue, it's not a very good starter. Let me just say that. It kind of starts off with our alien characters that are obviously diplomats and politicians and security positions who are leaving their homeworld after it was destroyed by a criminal who they have imprisoned, but he escapes, and he and his flunkies are going to try to head to Earth, and that's obviously what's meant to happen in book 2.
Okay.
But just from reading it, it tries to give you a brief glimpse of this world and some of these characters, but it just doesn't really do a very good job for the most part. Now, No, obviously, yeah. I mean, it's a first comic.
Yeah, so, maybe they go more into it later on, but
Maybe.
not a very good start to it, don't sound like.
No, not really. Not really. So, we'll see. And for anybody who's curious, the main reason why I got it was because it was free comic book day, but turns out, as I said before in my vlog, I missed out on it. So like all 7 comics that I grabbed, I ended up having to pay for. All right, buddy, your turn.
Let's see. Oh, back to the manga side of things.
Okay.
There's the Ragnarok series.
Oh, okay. I might have heard about that. I never read it, but I heard about it.
I have 10 books on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of involved around this character, Chaos,
mm-hmm.
who basically might be the Norse god Balder.
Okay.
And it kind of revolves around like more Norse mythology, but kind of told in a different way, and it just revolves around him trying to figure out what he's doing, and it basically kind of starts off with a big old fight between 2 sisters, one who's apparently become a Valkyrie, and is evil, and she comes to this village to destroy it because years ago her father kicked her out.
Yeah. And she's obviously a little pissed about it.
Daddy,
I want my own kingdom.
Yeah, not quite like that. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly why he kicked her out, but it had something to do with the fact that she was basically kind of evil.
All right, honey. Well, look, you just let me know when you're done with your period, and I'll let you back in. Sorry, that was
That's
terrible.
That kind of evil.
I'm sorry,
and that was
terrible.
very sexist. I buy that.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah. It basically concluded with the 10th one with this other character who has a cursed sword. In the book before that, it explained to how he got the cursed sword and why he's got it, and it was to save his girlfriend. Well, then he watched his girlfriend get killed right in front of him, and that kind of drove him insane. And the sword promised that, hey, if you give me the blood that I want, I'll bring her back. And he's been searching for the blood that this sword wants. And it's completely impossible for him to find it.
Okay.
And for why it's cursed.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's very morbid, very dark, and...
Yeah. Yeah, well, it certainly sounds
actually
like it.
really good.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I'm going to mention 2 other comics. These were 2 other comics that I purchased yesterday as part of Comic Book Day. And from what I understand, these are both brand new ones.
Okay.
You remember The Shadow, right?
Yep.
Yeah, well, this is his brand new comic book series, and I don't know if this is part of the title, but it says it on the front and on the inside of the comic, The Shadow Now.
Okay. So apparently instead of like the 1930s or 40s Shadow, it's a modern day Shadow. Okay.
Well, yeah.
I'm with you.
Which I can understand.
Yeah.
Them doing now, and
I'm kind of interested, but
now, and I'm sure you remember, you trying to show me the Shadow movie.
Yeah.
And I really didn't like it.
Yeah.
And well, this comic book, it does a very poor job with this. Like there are certain things that will happen, like certain transitions that the comic does. It does it very poorly. Like you'll go from one conversation to, suddenly we're back at our headquarters, but it gives like no narration about how like, we're back here now.
It's just basically kind of, well, I was talking to this moon. It's like, yeah, I'm back at my headquarters. How the hell did I get here? I don't know.
Poor transition. And it ends on a very predictable fashion. I mean, I kind of figured that, okay, this guy is going to turn out to be evil. Okay, so let me explain briefly what's been going on. So apparently for the past 20 years, after the Shadow defeated Shao Kahn and had him imprisoned, he leaves the country for 20 years. He sets up his network of spies and informants in order to keep the city safe and blah blah blah. He goes off for 20 years back to Shambhala to meditate and maintain his youth.
Okay.
He comes back and finds out that everything's gone to shit. There have been bombings and attacks on banks and people murdered, blah blah blah, and his network is seemingly kind of useless to be able to find out what's going on. And he even goes so far as to go to prison and visit Shao Kahn, who also Shao Kahn himself, and obviously this is diverting from the film.
Yeah.
Because Shao Kahn has his powers.
Because they'll cut out that part of his brain that had his powers. Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Because he subtly uses his powers in which to weaken the Shadow's powers, as well as we see later on when he tries to cloud some soldiers' minds, but it doesn't work.
Okay.
And so anyway, what ends up happening, one of his commanders turns out that, he was working with Shao Kahn, and the whole time while they were going around and wasting their time, every single one of their agents has been killed. And I kind of figured,
coming.
Kind of, yeah. I kind of figured, okay, this guy who brings up their own, there's this other character, this woman who the Shadow has established as his head of the network. And this other character, Kyle, as he's named, just so I can stop referring to him as, this guy. He comes to the Shadow and kind of, talks to him about how, look, I don't really want to have to say this, but, she's, she kind of seems to be slipping, in her years, maybe it's time that we let her go, blah, blah, blah. I kind of figured, you're probably going to turn out to be a bad guy. And surprise, surprise, he was. And this is what I'm talking about with the bad transition. He uses her at one point as a human shield, and then after he kills her, in the next page, we see a woman that looks just like her, who's holding a gun and either shooting at the bad guys or shooting at the good guys. You can't really tell which.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like they didn't really flesh out the whole transition or what the heck they wanted to do with this thing here.
Yeah.
It sounds like the story itself could be interesting.
Yeah.
But they just didn't execute it properly.
Yeah. And I kind of like some of the subtle hints that they do, in the scenes between Shao Kahn and the Shadow, where they're talking, Shao Kahn, he says to him, you retreated back to Shambhala and you've mastered the ability to be able to maintain your youth. Meanwhile, you haven't changed at all. You're stuck in the old ways that haven't worked. Meanwhile, I have evolved. I like, kind of what they did there with that little bit of dialogue, kind of establishing that the Shadow, he seems to be kind of stuck in the past. He hasn't really seemed to learn anything. But it's just very poorly executed. And then the next comic that I'll briefly talk about is Shadow Man. Did you ever play the Shadow Man video games?
No, but I've heard about it.
All right. Well, for the longest time, when I first played these games, I didn't know that they were actually based on a comic book. And this is kind of a different new take on it. And they add a whole bunch of stuff. Like this time, the Shadow Man creature itself is its own character, and he's basically treated like he is a parasite, like he's trying to take control of his host to do whatever he wants. And again, it's another one of those things where it's poorly executed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they're doing like so many things, and that just doesn't make sense, and just, yeah, I just didn't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. All right, your turn.
Okay, let's see. I do have part of the whole Spider-Man clone thing that they had going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Is this guy? It's like, is the Spider-Man that we see a clone or isn't he?
Yeah, well, and from what I understand about that entire Clone Saga series, it was that the editors at Marvel, because from what I understand, whoever started it, they had a clear ending that they were going to do. The problem was, the editors at Marvel decided, let's extend it for a long period of time where nothing really seems to happen, like all throughout the middle of this story. And it was just padding on padding and on padding to a point where where everybody just stopped caring.
At one point in time, there was like, is the guy who's being the Scarlet Spider, is he the real Spider-Man, or
is the other Spider-Man?
He's the clone.
Yeah, and even from what I understand, like what part of the initial intention of the whole Clone Saga was to establish the Scarlet Spider, have him take on the persona of the new Spider-Man, so that Peter Parker could kind of retire. But he could still, be a character in the series. He just really wouldn't be Spider-Man that much anymore.
Yeah, and and that's kind of what happened. And,
but then they decided to...
Yeah, and then they just kind of screwed it up, and and the whole thing with the pregnant Mary Jane thing, and dear Lord, boy, was she pregnant. And this is the comment on the art. They made her overly pregnant.
Okay.
I mean, it looked like she was about to give birth to 50 children.
Okay. That's pretty bad.
She looked.
She's pregnant with spider babies. Yeah. Now, I never read any of the Clone Saga series. I mean, the only part of it that I think I did have that may still have been a part of the Clone Saga series was I had a couple of Scarlet Spider books. But that was it. And sadly, I mean, that's what I really understand about the Clone Saga series from Linkara, was that it was this long, bloated series that after a while, nobody cared.
And
everybody just stopped reading.
It was an interesting concept. They just extended it way too long.
Yeah. Yeah, which was...
It sounds like that was the fault of the editors, not the writer.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, next I'm going to briefly talk about a series that my brother, I remember he introduced me to it. Milk and Cheese.
Milk and Cheese, okay.
I'm sure you know.
It sounds familiar.
I might have tried to show it to you, and you probably just stared at me blankly, like, wait, what? It's a comic series about, subtitled with Dairy Products Gone Bad. Where it's basically about these two characters that are literally a slice of cheese and a carton of milk.
Okay.
They're alcoholics.
Okay.
They're complete and utter assholes.
Yep. Okay.
And they're psychopaths.
Okay.
Every single story that happens is all just about them, getting pissed off about something in society and then they go on a rampage and just start beating the shit out of people. Like, there was one story I remember where they go to a sci-fi convention.
Okay.
And like the funniest bit in there that I remember is that they're standing in line for something, just comment, just kind of commenting, on like all of the people around them and everything. And then a guy dressed up as Spock kind of walks up behind them and just randomly says to him, "Live long and prosper." And they turn around and they both punch him in the face and shout, "Eat shit and die!" And there was another, and then there was another one that was all about their hatred of hippies.
Okay.
And there's this scene where they have this line of bricks, and they're chucking them directly at hippies and shouting, "Your firepower is weak. Try my brick power."
Okay, it kind of sounds like it was a comic written by a bunch of 13-year-olds.
Well, it was a weird series that was really meant to be about nothing. Like, hey, let's just do something psychotic and weird. And it was actually pretty fun.
Kind of sounds like they kind of embraced the weirdness.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Doom comic.
Yeah, kind of. Rip and tear! Rip and tear! All right, well, we're nearly halfway. Well, actually, we're more than halfway through my list. So let's try to touch upon whatever else we have left very, very briefly. What do you have next, buddy? Be it something that you love or something that you hate.
Kind of that I loved.
All right.
Now, I never actually owned this, but there was like a point in time when we first moved out here that I did work for kind of a furniture company.
Mm-hmm.
With my dad, and the owner's son did like have some comics, and I had some free time. Okay. And I started reading a 4 comic. There's this series that apparently somehow 4 kind of lost his mind and started hallucinating about this Valkyrie that was telling him that his father's trying to kill him.
Okay.
And it basically kind of with Lady Sif, Doctor Strange, the Silver Surfer, and some other girl basically trying to stop him from going back to Asgard and killing Odin.
Okay.
Because had he gone to Asgard and confronted Odin like that, Odin would have banished him.
Yeah.
For like ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Odin, Thor, not only will I banish you, I will banish you forever. It's like, oh, Dad, I mean it.
Yeah. In the sense that basically he would have killed him.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, at one point in time he even like stole, can't talk, this orb that increased his power.
Oh, okay.
Which is why this other girl was there.
Right. Okay, cool. All right, well, I got 3 comics left in my series. Or in my list.
Your list.
Yeah. And so I'll just talk about these next 2 briefly. The first one is the Marvel Zombies series.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that one.
Yeah. It was just an insane series that was all about, hey, what happens if all the superheroes in the Marvel universe become zombies? And it's very dark humor. Mm-hmm. It's pretty violent.
Mm-hmm.
But it got really good and it got really interesting very quickly. Because they all still have their superpowers. They still have a lot of their intelligence and their ability, to speak and communicate and everything.
They're just zombies.
Yeah. There's a part in the series when they take on the Silver Surfer and Galactus.
Okay.
And like the first beginning of the series is all about the heroes trying to combat the zombie outbreak, and then just kind of some of the survivors, and then what kind of goes on from there. And yeah, it was really good. It was really good. I really liked it.
Okay.
And then the next one, of course, is the Marvel Civil War book.
Yeah, didn't that one kind of have some hits and misses to it?
Kind of, yeah. There were also a lot of spin-off stories that talked about particular characters, like what was going on with them during the Civil War. But kind of the problem with some of those stories, like with the Spider-Man story on the Civil War, the main problem with that one is that when he starts talking about, oh yeah, I totally fought Captain America. No, you didn't. Iron Man fought Captain America. You were fighting whoever the hell else you were fighting in that book. You never had a confrontation with him. At least not in the main book. Yeah, and well, the book overall I thought was really good. I mean, it does make you raise a lot of questions about, would this character actually do this, or would he actually act this way? But at the same time, you also kind of have to ask yourself, well, if I was put in that position, I don't really know how I would act.
Yeah.
But it was, just a really good series. It was a good book that I enjoyed.
Basically kind of boiled down to Iron Man kind of wanted to eliminate the criminal element by getting rid of the mask and kind of registering all the heroes,
basically. Yeah. Where basically they would be ostensibly working for the government.
Yeah.
As I understand it.
And Captain America just thought that it would violate their right to privacy.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, and like I can understand there being other problems with the book. Like they don't go into an extent about what is so wrong about the registration. I mean, the only thing that we get out of it is that a lot of the superheroes are uncomfortable with unmasking, and like they even go so far as to say like, well, the masks are a tradition. So isn't the idea of like your family's protection and such, like, isn't that more important than the quote unquote tradition of masks?
Yeah.
And but still, I mean, I thought it was a really good book.
Yeah.
And
yeah, but there was like some things in it that, granted you, I haven't. I'm just from what I've kind of heard that.
Yeah.
Some of the stories were just an excuse to get two superheroes to fight.
Kind of, yeah. But a lot of the art is just spectacular, and the writing overall is still pretty good. There are things that do happen in it that are kind of dumb and at the same time kind of make you think you're a hypocrite, for doing what you did. But overall, I still thought it was a good book.
Yeah.
Not a great book, but certainly a good book.
Yeah, that kind of seems to be the consensus.
All right. However many other books you would like to mention?
I've really only got one.
All right, go ahead.
And that would be the manga from kind of the 90s, but kind of got reintroduced. Well, no, actually, I think it was it was in the 80s that it was first done, and then it got reintroduced in the late 2000s here.
All right.
And that was Street Fighter 2, the manga.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, and it's Japanese thing. It's actually really quite good. Kind of delves into like the whole Street Fighter type thing and kind of why they're fighting.
Yeah. Not just for a
and I just got like the first one, and it just like has bouts into it and
cool.
The fight between Ryu and Dhalsim was actually really good because Dhalsim basically countered everything Ryu could throw at him until he unleashed his Shoryuken.
Okay, cool.
Which is like, in this thing, was like the ultimate technique.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, well,
I kind of recommend it.
Oh, okay. Is there...
Anyway.
Well,
that's pretty much the last one that I want to mention.
Okay. All right. Well, my very last book is one that I was talking to you about earlier, the Uncanny Avengers Annual.
Oh, yeah. when you kind of started ranting on before we got started recording because you was waiting for your grandmother to see when she was leaving.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interrupt us.
Yeah. I really don't like this book. I really don't like it. I've read a good amount of it, and every single time it kind of comes to a point, I just end up screaming, "This is fucking stupid!" Okay, so the plot of the book is that Mojo, he's now in our universe. Now, yeah, I mean, you could probably say, like, oh, well, it's all part of the new reboots. Like, I'm going basically from what I know. And
wasn't he kind of like an interdimensional alien?
Pretty much, yeah. Who wanted to do gladiatorial TV shows and such.
Yeah.
And
basically an interdimensional TV exec.
Yeah. And well, he's pitching a show idea to this room of execs. And he says, okay, well, how about the Supernatural Avengers, which is comprised of Ghost Rider, Doctor Strange, Man-Thing, Blade, and who else is in this piece of shit? Let's see. Mojo, Doctor Strange, Man-Thing, Manphibian, Blade, Zatanna, and Ghost Rider. And then for the already established Avengers, we have Havoc, Captain America, Thor, Scarlet Witch, Rogue, Wolverine, Wasp, Sunfire, and Wonder Man. And what kind of happens is that Ghost Rider is kind of set loose upon them, and he's screaming about, you heroes, you have done crimes against the innocent, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, since when? And then the other Avengers, Doctor Strange, and they're not being manipulated or anything like that, or being used or have any form of device, at least as far as I know and as far as from what I've read. They allow themselves to cooperate with Mojo and attach these devices to the Avengers' heads to put them in a high school teen reality show.
Okay.
To a point where one of the characters, I forget which, I think it's Scarlet Witch, I think, because one of the execs calls up Mojo all pissed off about how, like, we're losing ratings, we need Ghost Rider to be established as a villain now, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, it's a little too early, like, do it now! And so they influence Scarlet Witch that she and Ghost Rider are having a love affair, and what kind of breaks them out of this whole thing is that she tells him that she's pregnant, which then awakens the spirit of vengeance and pisses him off, because the idea of him impregnating somebody with a demon spawn of his own creation infuriates him. And he goes on a rampage, which wakes everybody up, and then they have to all try to fight Ghost Rider to stop him on his rampage. First question, why the fuck would Doctor Strange do this? Why would any of these characters do this? This makes no fucking sense, and they're not being manipulated or anything. They're doing this of their own free will, apparently, and for a fucking TV show? Are you fucking serious?
Apparently they are, or they wouldn't have done it.
It's so fucking dumb. It's like, really?
Well, I kind of have like a whole problem with a lot of the direction these so-called reboots are going. Anyway. So. And that this kind of clinches it that they just, yeah.
It screams of weak, unoriginal writing.
Yep.
Is what it does. And it makes me so angry. Well.
Oh, Jordan. No, Jordan, don't Hulk out. No.
Ow. Anyway.
Oh, Jordan smash! Jordan's back hurts. Oh.
Well, there was our ranting on comic books. Some good, some bad, some awful, some that just piss us off.
Yes.
Or at least
mostly you.
All right, well, I hope that you guys have enjoyed. Let us know what you guys think. What are some of your favorite comic books, or at all, like any of the comics that we mentioned? And we hope that you've enjoyed. Hopefully, I'll be able to post this sometime tonight. We'll see.
And hopefully, the audio won't screw us.
We will just have to see about that in the so-called editing process. Yeah. Well, anyway, I hope that you guys have enjoyed, and we will see you guys next time.
Goodbye.
And always remember, we are the other people, and you are too. Good night.
Goodbye.